Hello, I'm John Elkington. I apologize for the sunglasses. I don't normally wear them, but I have an eye condition that makes me sensitive to sunlight, and today there's a lot of sunshine. So I've been asked the question, why or how did I come up with the idea of the triple bottom line? The year was 1994, and I spent 18 months trying to pin down a name for what I felt was the coming agenda for business and for financial markets. And when it finally occurred to me in 1994, I thought I must have heard it before. I was absolutely convinced that I'd heard the term somewhere already. And I rang people in the field and said, did you come up with this? Have you heard this before? And the answer was no, they felt novel. But then about 20 years later, I was reading through a book by Alvin Toffler, and it was called The Third Wave. He's perhaps best remembered for a book called Future Shock. And I very rarely read books again, but I'm just flicking through The Third Wave. And on about page 267, I came across a subheading, and it was multiple bottom lines. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, that's where the seed of the idea came from. Now, I read that book in 1980, so that was 14 years before I started thinking about the triple bottom line. In terms of the drivers, there was a lot of work going on at the time in and around business, a lot of it good work. A lot of it focused on what was called eco-efficiency, so how can business become more efficient, more productive in terms of waste, in terms of resources, in terms of energy, in terms of water, all of that good stuff. How could it make or save money by doing the right thing in terms of environmental and resource management? And I thought that was fine for engineers, but in my mind it wasn't addressing the economic side. Yes, it was talking about financial elements in terms of making or saving money, but it wasn't talking about the economic impact of business, nor was it discussing the social side at all. And so with the triple bottom line, people, planet and profit, which is what I called it the following year, so 1995, to try and simplify it a bit, I was trying to say any business has multiple dimensions of impact, positive and negative. And if we're going to make sense of the 21st century, we're going to have to learn how to not only track and account for these different forms of value and impact, we're going to have to learn how to value that positive and negative impact. So that's where it started, that's where the idea came from. As I say, it took 18 months to come up with just those 3 words, which is ridiculous. And then in 2018, I launched the first ever product recall for a management concept. I don't say that. This was the editors of the Harvard Business Review who published the recall article. And the reason why I did that was I still thought it was a good idea. I still think it's a good idea to have a triple bottom line agenda. And I think it's better in many ways than ESG, and we can perhaps come on to that a little later on. But the idea for the recall was just simply to say it's not being used in the way that I think would drive change in the directions and at the scale that is now needed.